have this record right behind me that I want to sample into the MPC and show you how I go about, I guess, matching tempos or tempo detection without having to go into your sample editor and doing all these menu diving. Every sampler has it. Every sampler should have it. And I'm going to show what button it is right now as we sample this record and go about detecting these tempos. Now, if you're new to the channel, welcome. And just a quick reminder, if you need to pick up any audio gear, I have links down in the description. Zounds is my favorite audio website to shop from. They offer great payment plans without checking your background. They don't run your social security number. So if you want to pick anything up, an MPC, a microphone, cables, SD cards, shop with my links down in the description to Zounds. Let's get right into it. All right, a crazy sample, right? I'm gonna go ahead and chop this up the way I normally chop up my samples and just go through my workflow. You'll notice that I don't think about tempos. I don't think about numbers. I think most of you, if you let me know down in the comments, do you really think about the tempos? I mean, I guess you do have to think about the specific tempo of this if you are planning to just use a loop and not chop it up the way we're going to chop it up right now. Then yes, you probably have to go in there and menu dive, detect the exact tempo of this file, and use some drum breaks and just match it up and call it a day. But that's not what I like to do. I like to chop this up. So let's go from trim to chop and let's start chopping this up manually. I'm gonna leave it on manual chop mode. That's it. Shift, convert, make this into its own program, hit do it, go to your main page, and right here we have that program that we just chopped up. Now, every sampler that I've used has tap tempo. Tap tempo is right here. Your MPC One Plus has it. Whatever that little flashing light is tap tempo. That is my best friend. I was just thinking, I was looking at this other sampler that just came out and I was wondering like, hey, does this have a tap tempo in it? And I never really thought about how useful tap tempo is until I was wondering if another machine did not have tap tempo. Let me show you why it's very important for me, especially for sample producers or people that like to chop up samples, because right here, I have not pitched up, I have not pitched down the sample. It is the original sample. I just chopped it up into quarter notes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Boom, that's all I've done right now. And in order for me to detect the tempo of this sample, all I have to do is every time I hit a pad is going to give me a tempo detection of what this tapping out rhythm is. So let's go ahead and do it right now. So it's at about 85, 88 beats per minute. It might fluctuate, but you're very close to what that tempo is. As a matter of fact, I can go ahead and hit record and just loop this right now to see if it sounds right. All right, let's go up to 88 beats per minute. It should sound a little tighter. A lot better. Now you'll notice there's some gaps in between. There's like millisecond empty spaces. Now when I manually chopped this, I did not do it perfectly. I wasn't going individually each, which I think you should do, but there's times where I'm just inspired and I'm just chopping up really fast and creating a program. What you can do right here, and this is something that I've not heard too many people talk about, but it's an awesome update that we received. I don't know how long ago. Everybody has this on their MPCs already, but it's tail length, the sample tail length. You go into your track editor or your program editor, depending on what version you're in right now. And right here, I want you to select this little eyeball icon and go to all, hit close. And right here, you have this tail length is turned off by default. But if we hit play and we hear those millisecond gaps, as soon as I engage tail length, it almost, it's not time stretching. It's just creating a few milliseconds loop after the cutoff of that sample. Let me hit play and let you listen to what I'm talking about. crazy, right? Night and day difference. Now, this is awesome because I was actually just talking to J.R. Swift. If you have not heard of him, I'll leave a link down in the description. Go ahead and check him out. He's worked for some amazing projects. Just someone that you listen to his beats. At least I listen to his beats and I'm like, man, I don't know what the hell I'm doing. But someone that's awesome when it comes down to samples, sample chopping, and we're going back and forth on a DM. We're discussing about warping or time stretch. What's the difference between time stretch and warping? Long story short, I don't like warping. I do not like how it sounds in standalone. I think it sounds horrible. What is it doing? Warping is taking a piece of audio and stretching it out to fit a BPM that you're adjusting. So if you're going up or down with your beats per minute, it will stretch that audio. It sounds really bad in standalone. I do not recommend it whatsoever. Now, the second option is time stretching. Time stretching is awesome because it does not sound bad. It actually sounds pretty good. I'm able to push my beats per minute minus 15 to minus 20, and it still sounds good. So I'm like, oh, okay, so that's easy fix. The only problem with a time stretch in your sample editor is that you are going to commit to that number. So if you want to slow down a piece of audio, you go to your sample editor, you time stretch it to a specific value, and it stays like that. It is destructive. So you cannot go back later on and like, oh man, I want to switch it about 2 beats per minute. Like, you got to stick with it. Now, the best solution that we found, and as we were going back and forth, is audio tail length. If you just need a few milliseconds at the ending of a sample chop that you're like, oh man, it's just cutting off too soon, go to audio tail length, and what it's doing is not warping, is not time stretching, so it's not doing anything with your audio when it comes down to degrading your audio. It's just grabbing a small little loop at the end of that audio tail, and it's just repeating it. It's almost like a delay or an echo, but it's doing it in milliseconds, which that makes it into a very smooth transition. Now, this does not work all of the time, but it does come in handy when you're just trying to close those gaps. That is a few milliseconds. This is the go-to tool for those empty spaces. Now, you could dial this in, the tail length to be 200 milliseconds, 300, 400. Notice how drastic this changes. Oh man, that's awesome. Now, that's my favorite way to go about tempo matching. Look, I've not pitched this up. I've not pitched it down. You already know, if you've watched my channel for a while, you'll know that the first thing I do after I chop up a sample, I go to the semitones, I pitch it down -2 semitones because I just love the darkness that it brings. But if you don't want to pitch, you just want to detect the tempo, tap tempo is where it's at. Now, real quick, if you are digging these sample chops right here, you sign up to my Patreon, and on my Patreon community, I do release these sample programs to you, and they're already chopped up. I already did the work by slicing them up. So you could just load these up into your MPC-1, MPC Live, or MPCX and just follow through, or just obtain these samples so you could do your own flips. I'll leave a link somewhere up here to my Patreon, or after the video, go ahead and go down to the description of this video. And also, I know I do these YouTube videos and sometimes I go a little too fast. If you need time and just more a one-on-one slow tempo pace with the MPC-1 or MPC Live when it comes down to learning it, I also have a course for these two machines. So right there, I take my time. I do not talk fast. We go very slow, and I go from start to finish on building your first sample-based beat. So if you need some help with your MPC, go down to the link of this video and sign up to the course. I also offer payment plans, so you could go ahead and sign up today and make payments as you're learning. All right, so like I mentioned, I like to chop this up the way we have right now. I go to this global in the sample or the track editor, and I like to pitch this down. Okay, so now we are kind of shifting off to a different section or the different process of making a beat. I just wanted to show you how I use tap tempo. That's my best friend. But look, now I pitch this down, or I could even pitch this up. Okay. All All right, so what if I want to just create my own chops or create my own grooves and just get off the grid of whatever tempo this original track is at, which is at 88 beats per minute? You could completely do that. You could start playing at different speeds, and when you start playing it or performing these chops at a different speed, you'll notice that you're now playing at a different tempo. What is that tempo? I don't know. I just play to whatever sounds good or feels good. And then once I'm locked into something new, I'll chop or I'll tap that new tempo or that new speed. And as I do that, it'll give me a new beats per minute. If I went faster or slower, I'll lock that in. I'll record that straight to the grid, and I'll start adding my drums after. So let's go ahead and play around with this. Oh, okay. So I'm going to go ahead and lay something down right here. I don't know how I'm going to perform it, but I already figured out what my first bar is. About 92 beats per minute. Let's go ahead and lay down the first bar. That's it right there. There you go. I could hit this pencil icon, double length, go to this grid editor, and just focus on these last two bars. So I know I'm explaining the whole tap tempo thing, but it's something I don't think about. Like I said in the beginning, this is something that I never really thought about it until when people ask me questions like, hey, how do I detect the tempo? Or I never really hear you talk about tempo, because I never really think about it because of the way I'm chopping up. Now, this is going to work if you are slicing up your chops or your samples the way I am right here in this video. I could perform these chops to any tempo, or well, almost any tempo or any groove that I want to. So once you start doing it like this, you start to kind of let go of the fear of, is this gonna match the tempo? Is it not? The only times where you have to be careful is if the sample has drums or hi-hats or percussive instruments within that sample, and you're chopping that up, and they might be crashing a little bit with your sample, with your drums. Now, that right there is where sampling becomes fun. And you got to figure out, like, sometimes there are some samples that I'm like, man, this is so good. Like, it sounds so good, but the drums are crashing a little too much with my rhythm. Or, you know, you just got to make a decision whether to stick with it or to scratch it off or to not even use the sample at all. So I just really wanted to make this video because I know it's something that is going to allow you to have more fun when you're sampling. Because for me, sampling, it takes me to the most high. Like, I feel so good, but because I'm able to execute any idea that I have in my head. I'm never stuck because the technical side of my MPC. Like, I'm always freely moving to the tempo of my ideas. Now, maybe because I know how to sample with my MPC, I have picked up other samplers, and I'm trying to move quick because I'm used to my MPC. And when I'm in a different machine, I'm a bit annoyed or frustrated because I'm like, oh man, how do I do this? Or how do I go from here to there? And it could be a bit frustrating. But if you're just getting started, take your time with the MPC. There's so many videos online that you can learn from. Obviously, I have my course, but if that's not an option for you, you can learn from so many people online. Like, there's just tons of great videos. So make sure you continue to inspire yourself and watch videos like this or other content creators that put out amazing content where they give us tips on how to chop up samples or how to add melodies to your samples. Like, there's so many things you can do, and I think that's what makes this art so fun. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. I'll catch y'all on our next video. Peace.